So to say that I don't think that X plus Y can explain that, when we know that A, B, C, D, E, F, and Z are important too, is kind of like a strange argument to make. I mean, it's a very, very strange argument to make. So for selection to be an important process, there's got to be some sort of function that's being improved upon. And he's right about that. I already told you that selection isn't the only way things can be made. But if you looked at what he said, he says if you take any one part away, he means the spring, if you take that away, if you take the base away, if you take the trap part of it away, and if you maybe take the trigger part of it away, I don't know. I mean, depending how you make these, maybe it could be like 3 to 5 different parts, right? Then the overall function of the mousetrap stops working. And he's right. But here's where the wiggle word comes in. And I'm not the first person to point this out. Draper is a philosopher who wrote out a very long explanation of this. And when Alvin Plantinga, a Christian, read this, this is actually what really changed his view of intelligent design. The point is that each of those individual parts could have had other functions. And actually, biologists have been saying for, I mean, I'm not an expert historian, but I know, at least since I was in college, and, I think you can even trace this stuff back over 150 years ago to, Darwin's book, actually, ironically. But I mean, this has been a constant idea. The word is exaptation. The idea is that a part would be, part of it might be developed for some reason, and then it gets co-opted or exapted to be used for another process. And to really be able to tell if something can evolve by evolutionary mechanisms, broadly speaking, you really have to have a comprehensive view of not only its current function, but its past functions. Now, I don't know anyone, frankly, who has not even evolutionists that have a good handle of that on complex cases. Now, I mean, we have some hints and clues into it, but you can't make a strong claim about it's not involved unless you have that handle. So it seems to be then an argument that's really based on either a misunderstanding or a silencing or whatever, or a misuse. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe you can clarify, Mike. I mean, I think it's kind of misleading to give that example when several other people have pointed out this issue of acceptation. You don't have to, just the fact that you take away one part here doesn't mean that it can't evolve. You also have to show that each of the things couldn't have been involved individually, and then come together later. And now you haven't done that with the mousetrap. And that's like a major logical gap that other people have pointed out that when I see that, I just need a way, I'm just explaining how I'm responding to it. Okay. Then I'm going to let you say it. When I see that, I've looked very closely at your work on this, and I know what some of your responses are, but I also just heard what your summary was for everyone. And also what you said all the major critiques are. One of the major critiques is acceptation. And I was very surprised to hear that that wasn't actually in the list of the 3 things that you raised.
Right. So just to summarize, tried for the non-specialist audience, there might be a process out there where these parts evolve separately, and then somehow, I'm not going to attempt to make a guess of how that would be, they came together and coordinated to serve a different function, right? That's generally kind of what we're discussing.
Yeah, and if you look at how design works, from even how human design.
May I jump in at some point?
We're not designing things from scratch. We start with the things and we put them together. So go ahead.
Yeah. So yes, please, Mike, respond to all that. Yep.
Okay. Josh, I can't believe that you read the work closely, because I addressed all those issues, starting from Darwin's black box, in each of my books, and in blog posts, papers, and all sorts of other things besides. So when you say that you don't understand how I can give this example, how can you object to it if you haven't read my responses?
I did read your work.
What I said is objected how you presented it here. I said objected how you presented it here. In Darwin's black box, I says, okay, well, suppose you want to make something like a mousetrap. And so you go into the garage, and here's a tire iron that maybe you'll use as the holding bar, and here's a spring from a grandfather clock. Maybe you can use that as the spring for the mousetrap. And I said, but it's clear that you can't use those parts unless they are matched to each other. So saying that this one part arose for some other purpose, and yet we can use it for some other complex purpose without adjusting it is not a serious proposal. I also wrote that we don't have to talk abstractly about these things. A lot of evolutionary experiments have been done in the past 25 years or so. For example, my second book was about the development of chloroquine resistance to malaria. And I don't have time to get into the specifics, but there was an enormous number of malaria parasites in the world, an astronomical number, 10 to the 20th or more. Many, many, many more than the number of, say, vertebrates that exist in the world. And yet, when they were challenged with this lethal drug, chloroquine, they could have done anything they wanted to. They could have, exapted something. They could have duplicated some genes. They could do anything. And yet, at the end, when people determined how they had developed resistance to this drug, chloroquine, there were 2 little point mutations in a pre-existing protein. More recently, I talk in my book about experimental laboratory evolution, and almost uniformly, I should say uniformly, it's due to either the breaking or rearranging of pre-existing genes. There's no exaptation to make something new, certainly nothing of the complexity of the systems that I talked about.
But isn't rearranging existing stuff to make something new, isn't that actually literally the definition of exaptation? How is that not exaptation?
Well, there is no example. The only example that is
you said rearranging. I'm just confused on a language level. I mean, I'm honestly confused. You said nothing except for the breaking or rearrangement of existing parts, but a rearrangement is exaptation.
No, it isn't. Exaptation.
Okay, what's the difference?
Exaptation means you use, say, the spring from the grandfather clock in your garage.
Rearrange it from the grandfather clock into this new thing.
The spring for the mousetrap. You can't say it's exaptation if you have to take something or something that looks like something else and extensively modify it to get it to work. So, for example,
okay, I'm not familiar with this definition.